In 1987, Thomas Sankara said, "Kill Sankara and 1,000 Sankaras will be born." It's been 37 years since Sankara made this statement, and today we see the reality of this statement in the person of President Traore. Right from the beginning, Traore distinguished himself as an African leader with a mindset similar to that of Thomas Sankara. And all his actions since he became the leader of Burkina Faso are reminiscent of Sankara's actions. In a move that reflects selflessness as a leader, Traore offered up his salary for the betterment of his country. But why did he make this move? Let's find out. Burkina Faso has been thriving once again under the leadership of President Traore, just like it was during the time of Thomas Sankara. You see, Traore has proven that he is not like the typical African leader driven by greed and accumulating wealth through public funds. It's not a surprise that most African politicians and leaders are usually among the richest in their countries. In fact, aside from getting power, money is one of the major reasons why they choose to join the politics of the country. And we all know how they get that wealth, not just from their salary as government officials, but more importantly from bribery and corruption and diverting public funds for personal use. Despite the economic challenges and myriad of problems faced by the citizens of the country, the politicians in that country, especially the president, never fail to showcase their wealth and luxurious lifestyle. They buy expensive cars even with the ridiculous number of cars they already own. They live in expensive mansions, travel in luxurious private jets, and wear custom-made clothes. It's as if they do not see the high cost of living that is suffered by the masses, and neither does it affect them. One such African president is Kenya President William Ruto, who is widely regarded as a U.S. puppet. For example, during his 4-day visit to the U.S., where he betrayed the fight against imperialism by agreeing to send Kenya police to Haiti, President Ruto hired a royal private jet from Dubai, which cost Kenya taxpayers $1.5 million. The president felt no qualms about spending this kind of money despite the fact that the economic situation in Kenya has worsened due to the increased taxes, a move directed by the IMF. And guess what? After heavy criticism by Kenyan, President Ruto defended his actions by saying that he is a steward of public resources and it was cheaper to travel on a private jet to the US rather than use Kenya Airways. How can using a private jet that costs $1.5 million cost more than using Kenya's local airway? But that is some African president for you. Another example of African politicians living the high life at the expense of their citizens is Teodoro Obiang, the president of Equatorial Guinea, and his vice president, Teodorin Obiang, who is also his son. Equatorial Guinea is even worse because President Teodoro has been in charge since 1979. Imagine that. The fact that the president is also the country's richest man is not surprising. His son has been tried numerous times for his luxuries, but that hasn't stopped him from spending public money on expensive cars, designer clothes, and vacations. What about Paul Biya, the president of Cameroon, who is always in Geneva, Switzerland, or Ali Bongo, the former president of Gabon? They and a number of other African leaders have frequently portrayed Africa as a continent full of dishonest leaders who live lavishly at the expense of their people. However, President Traore has chosen a different path. Instead of living luxuriously at the expense of Burkinabe citizens, Captain Traore has chosen to focus on the needs of his people and prioritize the development of the country. His determination and commitment to see the growth of Burkina Faso has made him sacrifice the salary entitled to him as the president of Burkina Faso for the growth of the country. Instead, he decided to keep his salary as a military captain. In his own words, Traore did this to show the spirit of sacrifice that must inhabit each Burkinabe in the current situation of our country, as he put it. How many African presidents are eligible to take this action? And if you think it is because he is a member of the military, you are wrong. Actually, his predecessor, the former military junta, Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, did the opposite. He increased not only his own salary, but also that of his fellow military ministers and the salary of the president. Additionally, keep in mind that he carried out this action during the brief period of time that he held power. This clearly reveals the true nature of his motives and heart. Here is a reminder for you to like, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel so that you can get more videos like this. Now, just like Thomas Sankara, Traore drives a simple car and has never been found in expensive suits or any kind of custom-made clothes. Instead, since he assumed power and in all the time he has appeared in summits or interviews, he always appeared in his military attire. We saw this during the Russian-Africa summit, where, unlike the rest of the African leaders who wore suits or African traditional attire, Traore stood out with his military combat clothing and a red beret plus his tactical gloves. Not only did he stand out in his attire, but he also stood out with his speech, which reverberated across the continent. He blasted African leaders' inability to be strong and patriotic enough to provide for their people and urged them not to behave as puppets or allow themselves to be manipulated by external forces. He said African leaders must prioritize their country's sovereignty and act in the interest of the people. Indeed, President Traore's commitment to his people challenges the conventional style of governance prevalent in African politics, which prioritizes the needs of the people above everything else. But Traore's sacrifice of his salary for the betterment of his people is not just an act of humility, it is actually a tribute to the leadership of Thomas Sankara, Africa's Che Guevara. Though he was just the leader of Burkina Faso for a few years, Sankara's distinctive leadership style and the result of it placed him as one of the most exceptional leaders in Africa and beyond. Unlike some African presidents during his time, Sankara lived a modest lifestyle and pushed for government officials working under him to do the same. He rode a bicycle to work, wore simple Burkinabe clothes, and lived in a modest house. Even his office as the president of Burkina Faso was very modest. Sankara did all this because he believed that leaders were meant to serve their citizens and not exploit them. This is similar to the current leadership style of President Traore, who has taken it upon himself to bring to life the ideals and principles preached by Thomas Sankara. By following in Sankara's footsteps, Traore is clearly sending a message to Burkina Faso, Africa, and beyond that, leadership is about sacrifice, service, and revolution. This is remarkable. But beyond sacrifice, Traore has taken the revolutionary ideals of Sankara to another level. You see, Sankara's vision for Burkina Faso is one that is self-reliant and free from the shackles of Western exploitation. He believed that Africa's true independence would not come through foreign aid but through the hard work and unity of African countries. This is why, as president of Burkina Faso, Sankara pushed for a self-reliant Burkina Faso and rejection of Western aid and influence. Sankara argued that Africa's dependency on foreign aid was a form of modern-day slavery, and he sought to liberate Burkina Faso from it by severing ties with the IMF and World Bank. Although his death cut short his vision, Traore has taken this vision as his own and is determined to bring it into reality. As president, one of his first actions was to introduce policies that directly aligned with Sankara's ideals. Traore introduced reforms that aimed at cutting down unnecessary government spending, reducing corruption, and ensuring that government officials lived modestly. Speaking in an interview a few months ago, Traore revealed that plans have been set in place to reduce the salary of Burkinabe politicians. Traore first expressed his concern regarding the exorbitant salary and allowances paid by the state to certain public servants and executives in the country. He noted that this practice should be denounced and emphasized that it would no longer be tolerated in his administration. According to Traore, it is unfair that a small number of individuals receive monthly salaries totaling millions of CFA francs, while the majority of society members are unable to afford even the most fundamental necessities of life like food and clean drinking water. In addition, he stated that balancing the system as a whole necessitates correcting not only the salaries of specific politicians, but also the entire system. He emphasized that everything must be founded on a principle and that the system's imbalance must be corrected. As a result, some people's salaries will go down while others will go up, but they should accept it in good faith because it's for the greater good and will balance things out. He also said that everyone has to work for the good of the country, so those whose pay has been cut should see it as their own way of helping the country grow. Traore further added that people in the villages need things like good roads, health centers, and clean water to drink. As a result, the nation must prioritize this rather than providing a group of individuals with exorbitant salaries on a monthly basis. Captain Traore was referring to this equilibrium. What a different kind of leader. Traore's actions since taking office demonstrate that he is distinct from the current crop of African politicians. The question is, how many African leaders have come out to say that there is a need to create a balance and correct the income inequality highly prevalent in the country, whereby those at the top earn millions for sitting down and saying yay and nay, while those at the bottom who do the work earn peanuts? The answer to this question is very few. Not surprisingly, Thomas Sankara was among those few. While in power, he sold off the government's fleet of Mercedes cars and made the cheapest car at the time, the Renault 5, the official vehicle of government officials. He also reduced the salaries of politicians at the top, including his own, and banned the use of first-class airline tickets. Another action of Traore that aligned with Sankara's revolutionary ideals is his relation to external forces. You see, Sankara believed that African countries needed to unite in their fight for independence by ditching the West and forming alliances with other countries that would allow them to be free of Western domination and exploitation. Traore took this ideal and made it a reality in Burkina Faso. Firstly, Traore has worked and is still working to build deep ties with other African countries. The formation of the Alliance of the Sahel Confederation is a reflection of this. Together with the leaders of Mali and Niger, Traore established the AES as a platform to promote African unity. I'm the Sahel region. These three nations are working to build a region that is free from the influence of France and the insecurity that has plagued them for years. But aside from these nations, Traore has also deepened ties with other African nations including Rwanda, Guinea, Togo, Chad, and Morocco. Secondly, Traore, in line with Sankara's ideals, has ditched the West and formed alliances with non-Western countries. This was one of the policies that set Traore from the current set of African leaders and made the West despise him. To the shock of everyone, especially the West, Traore kicked out French forces that had been resident in Burkina Faso for decades. France maintained a military presence in Burkina Faso and other former French colonies. Officially, it was to combat terrorism, but the fact is that the French military was in these countries to maintain their influence and protect their interests. However, Traore turned things around by expelling and terminating the military agreement with France. In doing this, Traore sent a bold message to France and the West that Burkina Faso would no longer tolerate foreign interference in its domestic affairs. Traore's actions followed quickly with a series of actions that aimed at reducing Burkina Faso's reliance on Western institutions. First, he cut ties with Western media outlets including Radio France International, France 24, and Voice of America media outlets. These media outlets have been notable for promoting biased pro-Western narratives that undermine Traore's administration, especially when it comes to the issue of insecurity. For example, on September 19, 2024, Voice of America aired a discussion centered on the insecurity crisis in Burkina Faso and its neighboring countries. However, speaking on the issue, the Superior Council for Communication, CSC, accused the VOA of undermining the morale of troops both in Burkina Faso and Mali. The council specifically objected to a description of a recent attack in Bamako as courageous and added that VOA's coverage of the security operations was unfairly critical. The CSC announced that all synchronization of national media with international media is suspended until further notice. If you think and analyze deeper on the statement released by the CSC, you would realize that the government of Burkina Faso is well within its rights to suspend them. You see, according to the CSC, the participants on the program described the deadly attack which took place in Mali as courageous. In simple terms, these people described the actions of the JNIM in launching an attack at the capital city of Bamako as courageous. How does that even make any sense? The JNIM insurgent group carried out a deadly attack which led to the death of many and wounded many more. Yet, instead of condemning the act, these people in their discussion had the guts to describe it as courageous. So, you can see why President Traore had to make this hard decision. The West, of course, lashed out at Traore regarding this decision, alleging that Traore was suppressing free speech. However, President Traore has remained resolute in his decision to ban Western media for the benefit of his country. Traore's foreign policy regarding the West focused on abandoning the West and focusing on countries that respect the sovereignty of Burkina Faso. Such countries include Russia, China, Iran, and Turkey. The West has, of course, criticized Traore's decision, but he has refused to budge, reflecting his commitment to upholding the sovereignty and independence of Burkina Faso. But beyond this, just like Sankara, Traore has pushed for self-reliance and self-sufficiency in Burkina Faso. This is evident in his policies, especially in the agricultural and textile sectors. Under his leadership, the Burkinabe agricultural sector has been expanded, with significant investment in small-scale farmers. In addition, Traore has encouraged local production, especially in the textile industry. His recent demand to stop the importation of fabric for military and police attire is a reflection of his commitment towards the growth of the Burkinabe local industry. In addition to this, Traore has also focused on youth and women empowerment, just like Sankara. He has implemented several initiatives aimed at providing education and vocational training as well as employment opportunities for young people. This is in line with his vision to build a country that is self-reliant and independent of the West. Indeed, President Traore is a leader like none other. His commitment and sacrifice to his country are worthy of emulation by every African leader. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video.